It's so pretty. It's so beautiful. You can't lose, honestly. You're at the Grand freaking Canyon. You know, it's so cool. There's so many great spots.
This is the Exploring the National Parks podcast with Dirt in My Shoes. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I think that the parks are best seen from the trail, and I'm here to make national park trip planning easy.
And I'm John. I carry the kids on the trails, I tell stories, and notice all the things that Ash doesn't care about much, like flowers.
Join us as we show you around America's spectacular national parks.
We're sharing our favorite places, fun facts, adventures, and misadventures.
And we'll even throw in a little trip planning.
Let's start exploring.
So you guys are the best. Thank you so much for leaving some fun reviews for us to read through. We've really been enjoying your feedback, and we are so grateful for you.
Yes, it's been so much fun. My favorite review that we got was, one does not simply hike into Mordor.
Yes, that person gets you.
Yes, exactly. Oh my goodness. I'm glad that some people out there are catching some of my references with Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and everything like that. So I'll keep them coming because I don't think I can stop, but you know.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so appreciative. And today we are so excited to talk about Grand Canyon National Park. Mm-hmm. Grand Canyon National Park is one of the national parks I think we've been to probably the most.
Yeah, I think it's definitely on the top of our list for most visits, but it's also probably one of my favorites and probably one of my most nostalgic national parks. You know, I think a lot of people have been there with family and, you know, it's just part of their road trip out to California or something like that. You know, I don't know. I love the Grand Canyon. I'm excited to talk about it a little bit in depth because I think some people visit as part of like a, you know, we'll be here for the morning and they don't really get to explore it. But we've had the chance to spend a lot of time there and do a lot of things. And so I'm excited to kind of get into it and talk about some of our favorite hikes and things to do.
Yeah, I mean, this park is so iconic. You think about, you know, even people who don't go to national parks know about the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. People from all over the world know about the Grand Canyon. It's on everybody's bucket list. I think, you know, everybody wants to see the Grand Canyon before they die. Mm-hmm. And so that's what makes it so cool. I feel like while you're there, you can feel that.
Yep.
People are excited to be there. They're excited to see it. However, I do think you do yourself a disservice if you don't venture beyond the viewpoints a little bit and, you know, spend more time actually getting to know the ins and outs of this area because there's so many cool things to do.
Mm-hmm. That's why we're here today, because we're going to get into it. And I think, you know, we're going to talk about the north and south rims and kind of the inner canyon. If you've been there before and you're like, wow, I hope by the end of this episode, you'll be like, you know, there's more than what I saw and I want to go back. So let's get there.
Okay, so we're talking about Grand Canyon National Park, and the national park itself doesn't actually cover the whole Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. So there are other parts of the Grand Canyon that we're not going to talk about today because they're not part of the actual national park. Mm-hmm. But so we're going to start at the South Rim because most people visit the South Rim when they're visiting Grand Canyon National Park and they want to go to like the main area. All the things to do, you know, typically that is the South Rim for most people.
Yep.
Some people don't even realize there's actually two rims in the national park that you can visit. And so a lot of times, even when people say, I'm going to the Grand Canyon, they're going to the South Rim, but they don't even differentiate it, you know, because it's just where you go when you go to the Grand Canyon.
My first question was like, which one?
Yeah. You know? Which side? But yeah, so the South Rim is really cool because as you come in, I mean, you really can find everything. So you come into the park and first you hit the visitor center, which is like the main central hub. That's where you'll catch all the free shuttles that run along the South Rim. I mean, it really is like a little mini village.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
A little mini city. You've got lots of hotels. You've got, like I mentioned, the free shuttles you take to get to most places, lots of restaurants, things like that. And that's all kind of centralized around the visitor center and like Market Plaza and Grand Canyon Village. So that's kind of the area you'll hit first as you come into the canyon. And we're going to talk a little bit about our favorite things to do there. But I think, you know, for the most part, we don't stay in the village for that long if we can help it, because there are other places that we like to spend more time.
Yeah.
But what's your favorite thing to do at Grand Canyon Village?
My favorite thing to do at Grand Canyon Village is walk along the rim and kind of eat ice cream while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So there's this little ice cream shop that you can get ice cream at. It's super busy and really expensive, but they have decent sized scoops. But I just love to walk along the Grand Canyon rim, and there's a bunch of different things you can wander in and out of. We've talked about there's lots of different buildings, but I just love walking along the rim and admiring everything from right there, because there's a lot to see, a lot to admire. But my favorite viewpoint would probably be the first one you'll ever see in that village area from the visitor center. It's just Mather Point. I love Mather Point because that's where I think most people see the Grand Canyon for the first time. I don't know, it's just kind of cool to be there and be like, this is where it all happened. This is where I saw it for the first time. It's so cool. And everybody's seeing the Grand Canyon for the first time right here. It's so fun.
Yeah. So Mather Point, that's right behind the visitor center. So it is really easy to get to. A lot of people love to go there. You can see the South Kaibab Trail from there, which is one of our favorite trails. And it's fun to see how it cuts down into the canyon from there. Yeah. And then I love the Trail of Time, which is a portion of the Rim Trail that you can walk. And it has a bunch of informational panels that you can stop at as you learn, you basically go back in geologic time. And you can touch some of the rocks that, they've pulled out of the bottom of the Grand Canyon that are millions and millions of years old and things like that. So I love doing that. I love the historic buildings right there. So some of my favorites are like the Hopi House. I really like the Kolb Studio. That one's super interesting.
Yeah, those guys were cool too.
Yeah.
You could watch the Ken Burns documentary to get a lot more information on those guys, but they were daredevils, man. They were the first pioneers of taking pictures in the Grand Canyon, and they did some really crazy things.
Yeah. So that's really cool. You've got El Tovar, which is one of the most beautiful lodges in any national park. And its guest list is celebrity studded. It's just, it's really, really cool. So that's right there. And then I think, the last thing of note really in this really super busy, congested area of the park is one of the most famous trails at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. The Bright Angel Trail. That place is it's a really epic trail. What's kind of funny is you kind of almost just wander into it.
Yeah. Well, it really is funny. You can pick up your ice cream cone and start hiking the Bright Angel Trail, which is one of the most dangerous trails in the national parks.
Right.
It's known for all the search and rescues along that trail.
Yeah.
A lot of people go on that trail unprepared and just not really knowing what they're doing. I think because it really is just right in the middle of that main touristy area. And people see other people hiking it and they're like, oh, what's this? Oh, it goes down into the canyon. Cool. But they're not prepared for the difficulty, which who really is, let's be honest.
It's
the
so
difficulty
hard.
of coming back out of the Grand Canyon once you hike in.
Right. I think that's most people's first experience realizing the depth of the Grand Canyon and that it's actually 3D. It's not just something you're looking far away at. You walk down this canyon just a little bit, you're like, I'm actually getting a little lower than I expected. You turn around and then you're just huffing and puffing back out, because it's so steep and so many switchbacks. But the Bright Angel Trail is so cool. It's not our favorite trail in the South Rim, but it is it's one of those amazing things you need to take a few steps on. And, when people actually complete the Bright Angel Trail, complete coming in and out of the Grand Canyon, it's amazing. One of my favorite people I've ever met in my whole life, we met coming out of the Bright Angel Trail. And it was so cool because you could tell he solo hiked it and he'd been camping for a few days and things like that. But he made his way out of the Bright Angel Trail and Ash and I were just wandering there. And he just he was so happy, but he didn't have anybody to talk to. And he just grabbed us. Let me tell you what I just did.
Let me tell you. Yes, it was such a huge accomplishment. And he was so nice. He was 70 years old from Japan, always wanted to hike down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back up. And we got to celebrate with him, which was really cool.
It was really cool. And he did the Big Daddy. He did the rim to rim to rim. which, we'll talk a little bit more about, but he's south rim to north rim, back to south rim. And it's just like 20,000 feet of elevation. And so he accomplished something big. And so it was worth celebrating. I wish we had like some Martinellis or something to bust out with him.
But I mean, the Bright Angel Trail. So a lot of people come out of the Grand Canyon on that one. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not planning on hiking all the way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, then you will want to hike a portion of it, just leaving there from Canyon Village, go down. I like to go down to, there's a lower tunnel. It's not very far down, but it gives you a really good taste of what it's like to drop below the canyon rim. And then you just turn around and come back up, because there's really no reason on this particular trail to go down any further than that lower tunnel, because you're just switchbacking down. The view doesn't change much until you get quite a ways in. We're talking like down to Havasupai Gardens, which is, I think, like 8 or 9 miles round trip. Mm-hmm. So, if you're just wanting to get a taste of it, I love going down to that lower tunnel, coming back up. It's really great experience. It's a lot of fun, mm-hmm. and it's super easy to access, and you'll just be enjoying the trail with other people who are excited about being at the Grand Canyon too.
Absolutely. And so if you want a good experience, grab your ice cream, go sit at the top of the Bright Angel Trail, and celebrate with some poppers, bring some fun things for people that are coming out of the Bright Angel Trail. And then right next to the Bright Angel Trail is kind of like another hub for the shuttles. And so you go down the hill a little bit, and then there's a line that you can wait in for the shuttle buses that go out towards Hermit's Rest. And there's a whole bunch of other viewpoints that you can enjoy and just view the rim from as you're going out that direction. It's one of the best places to take pictures.
I think Hermit's Rest, I think that shuttle and all the viewpoints you get to stop at along the way is probably my favorite area of the South Rim, mm-hmm. as far as viewing the Grand Canyon goes. Uh-huh. Because you're just like, you're working your way along the rim, and there's so many cool viewpoints you can get out of, and they all look a little bit different. But like the canyon cliffs out in this area are really sheer. And so, I mean, in a lot of cases, you're kind of just looking straight down into the canyon.
A little bit of vertigo.
Yeah, and you still see all the layers and stuff. And then the river kind of pops in and out. You can see it at some viewpoints and you can't see it at others. Mm-hmm. For me, I just love like hitting the different viewpoints along the Hermit Road. You do have to take the shuttle most of the year. They don't let you drive your own car out there, but it is so much fun to like just take the shuttle from stop to stop to stop and get out and just be amazed that, even after like a 2-minute shuttle ride, the view could change that much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I didn't realize until I had taken this shuttle and seen those viewpoints, I didn't realize how difficult it actually was to see the Colorado River from the South Rim sometimes.
Yeah.
Because the Colorado River has literally dug itself so deep that on the South Rim, it's like, ooh, you see that little tiny green,
and I feel like a lot of times, like as we're going along these stops along the Hermit Road, it's like, ooh, can we see the river from this one? Like we're all looking down, like, and sometimes it literally is like the size of like a pea. Mm-hmm. You can barely see it, but you can see it nonetheless. And so It's really fun because for the Grand Canyon, for me, sometimes you get a little lost in the layers, mm-hmm. which is really cool. But when I can see the river, that means that I can see the bottom.
Right.
And that just gives me the perspective of like how high up I am and how deep the canyon is. Mm-hmm. That, oh, good, I can see the river. That's the bottom. And oh my gosh, that is so far down.
Yeah, it's like 5,000 to 6,000 feet away or down. It's amazing. It's so deep. And luckily, because a lot of times you might even miss it because it's so hard to see, the shuttle drivers will be like, just so you know, you can see the Colorado River right now. And then you're like, oh yeah, let's look. They'll point you where to look. So one of the hardest things about the South Rim, I feel like, is finding solitude. Mm-hmm. It can feel really crowded a lot of the time. And I think, what's really cool about this area of going on the shuttle and out to Hermit's Rest is that there is a rim trail that follows that whole route the entire way. Right. And so what we like to do is we like to get off the shuttle and then we'll walk the rim trail between some viewpoints instead of taking the shuttle to everything. Because honestly, like the shuttle gets really busy, but the rim trail does not. Yeah. I mean, there's like very few people that put in the effort
to walk along the rim trail in this area, especially. So we like to go from like the Powell Point area or so and then walk over to Mojave Point. And so you can hit Powell Point, Hopi Point, and Mojave Point with it's just like a mile walk along this flat rim trail. And so you're getting Grand Canyon views the whole way because you're on the rim, but then you also get to stop at those 3 viewpoints and you're not just spending your whole time on the shuttle.
And it's crazy because you literally you left the village, you waited in line probably, and you were just surrounded by people. And then all of a sudden you get out there and just like, I have this whole place to myself.
The rim trail feels like that to me in a lot of sections. There are some sections that are really busy, but there are some sections that like literally see no people.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's what's crazy about the South Rim. And that's why, it really is worth like knowing where to find that solitude because it gives you a totally different experience. And that's where we really come to love the Grand Canyon is when you can sit out, look over the rim, just like marvel at this amazing, amazing thing in front of you and just have, you hear the birds chirping and the squirrels chewing the bark or whatever they do. And it's just totally different, than your experience when you're in, say, the Grand Canyon Village area, which has a different energy because it is fun to be surrounded by people who are also super excited about what you're seeing. Right. So that is a fun experience too. But definitely like put in some effort to at least get on the rim trail for a minute, especially as you're going along Hermit Road, because it's a different way to experience the canyon. And I think you need both.
Absolutely. You definitely do want that because it's so easy to kind of get lost in the crowd sometimes when you're in the busier areas. And I don't know, I think that it's so cool that this is one of the top 10 visited national parks almost every single year. You have millions of people coming here. And it just blows me away that even just that one tip, that one trick, that one Grand Canyon hack is go hiking. Yeah. And you'll get away from people. It's so crazy. But there are a few of those points. Now, the shuttle does take a while to get out there, but luckily there are some turnaround points if you want to. When we first did that with our kids, we realized, this shuttle takes a while sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, our kids were really young and they did get kind of antsy on the shuttle. But yeah, that just reminded me, do you remember when we went to the Grand Canyon, we went to the South Rim a couple years ago and it was like right before everything shut down for COVID. But like we knew COVID was a thing. Like the parks were starting to shut down and we were still like full-time RVing and we're like, we literally have nowhere else to go. We don't know what to do with all these campgrounds shutting down and stuff. But so we were finishing up our trip of the Grand Canyon and I remember we went out and we were doing these viewpoints, we were seeing these viewpoints, and I look over at my son, who's 3 at the time, and he was licking the handrails. He was licking the handrails. And I was just like mortified. Oh my gosh, he's going to catch COVID. And, everybody was so nervous about COVID, at the beginning when we didn't know very much about it and stuff. And he's just licking handrails at the Grand Canyon, which is literally probably the worst place.
Oh my gosh, it's so bad. It was like on Elf when like Will Ferrell was just like eating the gum off of the bottom of the railings of the subway.
This is the same kid that was licking puddles in New York City.
Oh my gosh,
while the pigeons are swimming in them. So like he's got a great immune system, but that was like one of my funniest Grand Canyon memories was him licking the handrails at the Grand Canyon.
Oh yes, that's definitely something with little kids on the shuttles. But then luckily you can take your car on the next area when you go out towards Desert View. So if you were worried about your kid licking things, go ahead and take your own vehicle, strap them down and put on their masks so they don't lick things on the Desert View or something like that. But I love the Desert View too. Maybe before we get there, what's your favorite viewpoint on the Hermit's Rest Road? What do you think is your favorite viewpoint out there? Because I think we have the same one.
Yeah, okay. So my favorite viewpoint is Hopi Point. But I think that's also because like we timed that viewpoint so well and it was absolutely spectacular. It was sunset. The lighting was amazing. You just had like sun rays going down into the canyon and everything was like turning pink. And it was so beautiful. Yes. And so, yes, like I think that is my favorite, but also I think that you need to if you're really wanting like good photos and like a really cool experience, you need to make the effort to either get out at sunrise or sunset, or if there's a storm, that always makes it super interesting. I love being at the Grand Canyon when like lots of clouds are rolling through and like you get like fog. That really accentuates the layers of the canyon well. And so I think it more depends on the timing rather than just like the specific viewpoint.
As I've been thinking about it, like the Hopi Point is probably my favorite, but I also think any viewpoint that you go to at sunset or sunrise is going to be your favorite viewpoint of that trip, basically, because
it makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah, it's so pretty. It's so beautiful. You can't lose, honestly. You're at the Grand freaking Canyon. It's so cool. There's so many great spots. I think what happened to us was we were like, okay, let's just go until the sun really starts to dip down, and whatever one it's at, then we'll just pop out at.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of how it happened for us. The sun was like dipping down. We're like, okay, we're timing it now. Get off now. Get off now.
Yeah.
And so that's how we ended up at Hopi Point.
Yeah, but that one is so cool. And you mentioned the Desert View Drive, which, we can talk about because that's the other section of the South Rim that has a lot of viewpoints. You don't have to take the free shuttle to get there. You can drive your own car. And so, that one's really nice too, because then you can time it better. I guess it's easier to time it for like those sunrise or sunset views if you're not having to rely on the shuttle. But I love the views from out the Desert View Drive. So if you're going east of the Visitor Center area, so if you look at a map, you've got the Grand Canyon Village, Visitor Center, Market Plaza, kind of like right in the middle. And then to the west of that is Hermit's Rest and, the Hermit Road that you can take. And then to the east of that is Desert View Drive.
Right.
So you really have 3 different sections at the South Rim that you want to focus on, which is why I think it's important to plan more than like a half a day or a day.
Right.
Because you really could do almost 1 day per section.
Right.
There's enough to do in there. So what's your favorite viewpoint along Desert View?
It's a hard choice. It's like 50-50 between Moran Point and Grand Viewpoint. I love both of those. And I think the reason I love Moran is because I think that he's just such a good painter.
Yeah.
So Moran Point is named after like this iconic national park painter 100 years ago or something like that. He makes some really pretty pictures. So that's probably why I like Moran Point more. But I think Grand Viewpoint might be my favorite along that road. What about you?
I don't know. I probably Moran. But again, I think because I love his paintings. Yep. They're so beautiful. And you get there and you're like, it looks like a painting. Your mind's already there,
Yes.
And so
I will say one thing. As I was getting ready for our fun facts episode that we'll do next week, I noticed as I was looking through pictures, Lipen Point has a very specific geological view. I don't know. You can see some really cool geologic features at Lipen Point, almost better than at any other point that I noticed in our pictures. And I'll kind of get into it, but kind of just notice you'll be able to see more diagonal layers than just flat layers. And that's important when you're talking about geology at the Grand Canyon. So I will do a quick shout out for Lipen Point there.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, there's some really good ones. We love just driving out there and taking, a leisurely amount of time going between those viewpoints. And then when you get out to the end of the road before you actually leave the national park, that's when you hit the Desert View Watchtower, which is super cool.
Yeah, that's the granddaddy of the East Road there. It's so cool. I love.
Why do you keep saying granddaddy? I don't know where that's coming from.
I think grand is in my head from Grand Canyon, so everything's like the granddaddy.
Okay.
It's the Watchtower is the granddaddy of the East Road. That's really dumb. It's true. But yes.
So the Watchtower is really cool because it was designed by Mary Coulter, and she did a lot of the designs, the historic buildings at the South Rim. And so it's supposed to look like a Native American ruin, but it's not.
Right.
It's just supposed to look like one, but it is really cool because you can go in there and you can hike the stairs up to the top. And that's actually the tallest view of the Grand Canyon on the South Rim is from the top of the tower. So but the area is just really cool. They do a lot of like Native American cultural demonstrations. They have like basket weavers and pottery makers and stuff like that who come and demonstrate. It's a cool like cultural area at the Grand Canyon. I think it's a really strong nod to the Native American heritage of the area. And so we really like to hang out there and just see what's going on that day.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Well, if you've ever been to Mesa Verde, you'll kind of recognize how the tower looks like it's built in a similar fashion, with some of the windows and the way that the rocks are put together and things like that. Just kind of keep that in mind if you've never actually seen it or been there before. But yeah, that's super cool. But I think one of my favorite memories of the Desert View area is actually a wildlife sighting. And
yeah,
it was when we were younger and Ash and I were kind of somewhat first married. We had this little Nissan 1999 Nissan Sentra. And so it was like the size of a grocery cart, basically, just us packed into this little car. It was the greatest little car. I actually learned how to drive a stick and nod to Ash.
Yep, I taught him how to drive a stick on that car.
which was great, and now I'm proficient. It was so funny. We were driving along that road, and
I was driving,
yes,
which I don't know why I was driving, because John never lets me drive. He hates when I drive. He says I'm a bad driver, which I'm not, by the way. I've never had a ticket. I've never been in an accident. I am a great driver on paper.
She is so good at driving under the radar, apparently.
So I was driving, and John already gets a little nervous when I drive. So we're driving towards the Desert View Watchtower. We're going in that direction, and out of the corner of my eye, I see like this dark smudge, and it moves and runs out of the trees and like in front of the car, and I slam on the brakes and scream. I'm like, ah! And John's like freaking out because I'm scaring him and the thing is scaring him. But it was like this giant black thing that came and jumped out in front of our car and then ran into the trees.
Yes.
And both of us are like panting. And like once we catch our breaths, we look at each other and we're like, what the heck was that? Was that a pig?
Yes. And if you're from the Southwest, just saying the word pig, you already know what it was. But we had never seen one before.
We've never seen one. Nobody told us. And they're called javelinas. And they're not pigs, but they look kind of like warthogs.
Right.
Almost like they're mean, nasty looking things. But apparently there are those at the Grand Canyon, which we didn't realize.
Yeah, well, like I was saying, we're in this little teeny tiny car and this giant, Hercules-sized pig, like the movie Hercules when he fights that giant warthog. That was what it felt like. It's like we were looking up at this giant blob of a pig, and it just scared us all so bad. I think that's one of my favorite memories of that area, just because it was our first time seeing like an animal in that area that we didn't expect, nor did we think existed,
Yeah. And it's funny because like we've been all around the Southwest since then, and you see them everywhere. I mean, they were like in my sister's neighborhood in Arizona.
Right.
So they're not like uncommon, but we just like didn't know that the Grand Canyon had these pig looking things. And that was quite a shock.
It was
so funny. So yeah, keep your eye out for that. I mean, the South Rim has javelinas. You'll see elk. There is a specific kind of squirrel that you can't find anywhere else called the Abert squirrel. That's a really funky looking squirrel. So you can find that at the South Rim. But there are, I think a surprising amount of wildlife encounters that we have had in that area. You wouldn't think so, because it's not like, you're still in the desert. It's not like heavily forested. There is some forest, but from the South Rim, I don't know. For me, like I was really surprised even to see elk in that area and stuff too, because it doesn't seem like they would be there.
Right. Well, you're like driving out of the desert, and then as you make your way up to the top, to the rim of the Grand Canyon, like you're surprised by like a forest.
Yeah.
And then you see elk walking around, and then you're like, wait a minute, I thought
and pigs.
And pigs.
Just kidding.
Yes, and
Javelinas,
giant javelinas. But one of the animals that we've overlooked that we haven't said, condors. Condors.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That's a great wildlife sighting if you get a chance to see one of those, because those are amazing. They're like one of the biggest birds in the world.
Isn't this so funny? So we've seen them from the rim looking down into the canyon. We've seen one like perched on a rock down below. And when we saw this one in particular, the people around us were like, what is that? Is that like a raven or something? And we're like, yeah, like a human-sized raven. They're massive. Their wingspan is what? Like
9.5 feet.
Yeah.
9.5 feet. They're
massive
huge
birds.
Yes. And there's, at this point in world history, there's only like 500 of them that are alive.
Yeah.
And so if you see one, it's more exciting than a javelina. I'll just put it that way.
It is. It is. Yeah, condors are so cool. So as you're out hiking and exploring, be on the lookout for those as well.
Right.
Because that's a really cool thing to see while you're there.
Exactly.
Hey friend, I am just interrupting this episode real quick to let you know that you can get a fully planned out hour by hour itinerary for this national park on dirtandmyshoes.com. Maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed by all the ins and outs of the trip planning process, or you might have a fear of missing out on all the best sites and activities in the park. You've probably also heard the horror stories about how busy this park gets and are hoping to actually find some solitude while you're there. Friend, with a Dirt in My Shoes itinerary, all you have to do is show up at the park and follow the schedule. It's exactly what I would do if I was with you. You won't have to fight for a parking space, and you won't have to worry about missing out on anything cool. And on top of all of that, you'll always have the most up-to-date information. I keep your itinerary updated in real time, so you'll know all about what's happening in the park when you go. This is super helpful because what if an activity or a road is closed for construction? I'll provide you alternative options for that. Maybe extra reservations are needed to enter certain areas of the park. That can be so stressful, but I will help you snatch up those hard-to-get reservations. And what if Mother Nature strikes, which she really always does, with a major weather event like wildfires or flooding? I'll make sure you can easily navigate through those changes while still filling your days with fun and adventure. I am here for you every step of the way. You'll find a link to the itinerary in today's show notes, or you can go to dirtandmyshoes.com to find all of the available itineraries. It's time for an epic national park vacation, and I can't wait to see you out on the trail. So that kind of covers the Desert View Road. The part that we didn't talk about yet is like the very beginning of Desert View Drive, because you have to take a shuttle to this portion, and that is the South Kaibab Trailhead.
Yes.
So the South Kaibab Trailhead is located kind of along that Desert View Drive, but you can't drive your own car there. You do have to take the free park shuttle year round.
Mm-hmm.
And the South Kaibab Trailhead is like our favorite. That's our favorite trail at the Grand Canyon.
It's the best trail in the park. And we're a little bit biased, but we're also objective. And so...
Are we? Okay, so I love this trail because for me, I think that going below the rim is the best experience you can have at the Grand Canyon. But the South Kaibab, it takes you, like, instead of like just switchbacking down against the cliff to work your way down, it takes you out into the canyon. I mean, you're like following a ridge line, you're making your way all the way out. And so then you get 360-degree views as you're hiking. You're not backed up against a cliff's edge. You're like out in the middle of it. So that's why I love it. It's the fastest way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. So your knees will be screaming at you because you are going down, 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 down.
Yes.
There's really not a lot of switchbacks on that trail.
No, which is amazing, because like the Bright Angel Trail is like all switchbacks.
Yeah, I mean, at least until you get down to
Havasupai Gardens or something like that. Yeah. But I was just thinking, comparing the two, the Bright Angel versus the South Kaibab. It's like in The Lord of the Rings when Gimli is like, Gandalf, I'd say we're going the long way round. Why don't we go through the mines of Moria? Balin will give us a royal welcome at Phantom Ranch,
Yeah, don't take the long way around. You go through the mines on the South Kaibab.
Yes, even though that didn't turn out great, but
Okay, so I don't know if you remember the last time we hiked this trail. We hiked this trail a lot. We have been down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon on this trail, but also there's a couple of stopping places beforehand that are really great for, if you just have a couple of hours and you just want to go down and come back up.
Right.
So that's Ooh-Ah Point and Cedar Ridge. I would for sure plan to at least go to Ooh-Ah Point, please.
Yes.
That will be probably your favorite trail that you do at the South Rim. So I can't remember. I think it was when we were actually hiking down to the bottom on the South Kaibab. And when you first get on the trail, there are a few quite steep switchbacks actually as you're going down. It looks epic. And like we're all like suited up, we've got our big hiking boots and our trekking poles, and we've got our backpacks because we're hiking all the way to the bottom. And we're like ready to go. Yeah, we're like legit. It's like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., you know. And there were a bunch of people there because if you're hiking the Grand Canyon all the way to the bottom, you have to start early. Mm-hmm. So we're with a whole bunch of people that are also doing the same thing. All of us look legit. And then I'm hiking down. I slip on the switchbacks.
Right. That's right.
And fall flat on my back and like slide.
Oh my gosh.
It was the most embarrassing thing ever. I was like, I really do belong here, you guys. Like, I really do know what I'm
doing. She's a fraud. She shouldn't be here.
It seemed like I was so mortified. I was like, oh my gosh. I literally just like slipped, fell on my butt and slid down the switchback.
Oh my God. And just to add a little bit of fright to it, you know, it's scary sliding down the Grand Canyon. You know, you don't stop if you don't stop yourself. Anyways,
it wasn't
I was
icy.
Like watching this happen. And I was like, you know.
And I'm just like dying of embarrassment. Who cares if I fall off the cliff? Like, I'm dying of embarrassment. But it wasn't icy or snowy or anything. It was May. Yes. I think the trail was just, it had a little bit of dew on it from the night.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes these little tiny pebbles, it's kind of like Home Alone, you know, how we got the robbers, you know, you put a little bit of marbles on the ground and it slides out from underneath you.
That was my marble moment. That's totally what it was like. And I just like slipped. I fell flat on my back and just slid. And
well, what's really funny about this is, generally speaking, people keep pace during this trail.
Yeah,
and so we saw these people that you just slipped and kind of embarrassed yourself in front of. We're hiking with these people for like the next 4 hours, you know, at least to get down to the bottom. And you're like passing each other back and forth, getting drinks and things, just like you're the girl that slipped up there.
My pride took a heavy hit that day. I was like, I do know how to hike, I promise. Actually, speaking of my pride taking a heavy hit. So when you hike down into the Grand Canyon, you know, everybody is fine pretty much going down. Mm-hmm. You know, you're excited to be there. It's so cool. Yeah, your knees might be screaming a little bit, but like, you're hiking the Grand Canyon, man. So you just deal with it because it's so awesome. And then you get down to the bottom, and at the bottom is what's called Phantom Ranch. This is like a collection of cabins that you can stay in. That's nearly like, you're probably more likely to win $5 million in the lottery than to get a reservation at Phantom Ranch. Mm-hmm. It is so competitive and so difficult to get reservations there. And we couldn't. Right. We almost did. I got through to get the reservation.
This story is really funny. Let's just take 2 seconds because we were in Yellowstone and we were planning ahead for this trip to go to Grand Canyon and hoping to stay in Phantom Ranch. And we had 4 grown adults on the phone trying to get through, and we were just on hold for like an hour. And when you're on hold that long, generally speaking, you put your phone on mute or something like that, you know, or, you know, you put it on speaker and you're kind of doing other things. Well, the person on the other line finally came on.
The person came on and I was ready. No, I was ready. I talked to the person. I got my dates. I gave her my name. I was going to pay, and the phone cut out. It cut out.
I thought you put it on mute or something. No.
Well, I did. I muted it for a minute while I was grabbing my credit card. Right. And then I hung up. No, I don't think I hung up. No, it probably was user error. Oh my gosh. Have I ever been so devastated? I don't know. So I had it. I had it within my grasp and I lost it and I was so sad. Oh man. And everybody else was mad because they'd all sat on the phone for an hour with me, like all of us trying to get it, and I blew it. I majorly blew it. So that,
in hindsight, it's one of the funniest mishaps ever.
So we didn't get to stay at Phantom Ranch, but you know, being hikers, like, so when I worked as a park ranger at Grand Teton, hiking 30 miles in a day was not, that was fine. Mm-hmm. I would do that on my days off even, because I just loved to hike around the park. And so, you know, I'm looking at the Grand Canyon and we're going, okay, you know, it's like 7 miles down and it's like 9 miles up. So, you know, that's not that bad. We can totally do that in a day. Right. And some people, you know, a lot of people do it in a day if they're big hikers. You know, it's something that you have to have enough experience for. Uh-huh. You have to prepare for. You've got to be in great shape. But, you know, it's not that uncommon. Because a lot of us can't get reservations. Right. The 5 people out of 1.5 million that are trying to get those reservations. And we still want to hike to the bottom. And so we did it. And my pride, I mean, not only did I slip on the switchbacks and I flubbed up trying to get Phantom Ranch reservations, but I literally thought I was going to die on that hike. That's the hardest trail I have ever done in my entire life.
Right. Well, it didn't help that someone was playing mind games with you as we're coming back up Bright Angel Trail. You know, Ash and I are trudging our way up the trail, and like we had been going for a while, but we still hadn't made it up like one of the most important layers to kind of see where we actually were on the Bright Angel Trail. And someone coming down looks at Ash and like just says to her, "You're almost there."
Yeah.
And we were like,
and I was like,
not even close.
Am I almost like, we knew we were approaching Havasupai Gardens, and yeah, he was like, "You're almost there." And I think it took me like another hour and a half to get there.
Right.
So I was like, that freaking person, I wasn't even close, you know, and the whole time I'm thinking every bend I go around, I'm going to be there. And so I just kept deflating and deflating and deflating because it is hard
right. Well,
to hike out of the Grand Canyon.
Right after he told you that, you got like your second win.
Yeah,
like,
I was so excited.
Sweet, we're almost there.
I'm doing great.
And then it just keeps going.
Well, because I looked at the clock and I was like, oh, we're making great time if we're almost there, you know? And so, and then just the longer it got, the more I was like, I'm going to die in this canyon. and then you get to Havasupai Gardens and, you know, we take a break and stuff. And then you just stare at, it's like miles of switchbacks.
Yes.
From there, where you're just switchbacking up the cliff. I got so mad at John because he kept trying to like encourage me, and I don't do well with that. And I was just like, just hike your own hike and I'll hike my own hike, and, you know, I'll see you at the top. And I think he's like giving me this look like, but we might not see each other at the top. You might not make it.
I'll give you an hour and a half behind me, and then I'm calling for a search and rescue.
I probably was about an hour and a half behind you just at that point. And we've talked to other people who've hiked it, and it's like once you reach that point, you're just like, you're looking at your feet and you're just willing yourself to take one more step.
Right.
You know, because you've been climbing up out of the canyon all day, and you're at the home stretch. You can see the top, but it is just like switchbacks to infinity.
Right.
To get to the top.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah. So we hiked down the South Kaibab, and then we hiked up the Bright Angel, which is what most people do. The Bright Angel has rest stops and like water breaks that you can take as you go up. So most people like to go up that one. And then the South Kaibab is just much steeper. So for most people, it's preferable to go down that one.
Right.
And I would do it that same way again, hands down. Like, it was such a cool experience.
Oh, absolutely. And just like that night, that old Japanese guy that made it to the top, when Ash and I finally completed it together, it was just like the greatest feeling in the world. Your legs are mush for a couple of days, but then you're like, I'd do that again.
Yeah, totally do that again. We ate our weight in pizza after we got out.
Yes, we did.
But yeah.
We burned 5,000 calories, you know, if not more. And then we ate twice as much as that.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience. So, I mean, you don't have to hike all the way to the bottom. There is something about being right on the shores of the Colorado River at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, though, that just, you can't even put a feeling to it. Yeah. It's amazing. So if you can, definitely do what you need to make it happen. But again, like I mentioned, you know, you don't have to go all the way down on those trails that take you down to the bottom.
Right.
There are stopping points, good stopping points where you can turn back around and go back up and still just have a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
And your perspective in the canyon and of the canyon totally changes.
Oh, absolutely.
Once you dip below the rim.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go very far. You just got to get below the rim. Give yourself that perspective of like looking up to the top of the Grand Canyon.
Right.
And it's amazing.
Well, yeah, because there's like 20 different layers that you're seeing. You know, when you look at the Grand Canyon, you see all these different color layers, you know, and they all represent a different amount of time. But from the rim, a lot of times it's just, oh, they're just all there. But when you've been hiking for 45 minutes and you're like halfway through the first layer, it really puts it into your, you know, it's just like, holy smokes,
you're
this
like,
thing is
I'm
huge.
1/16 down and I've been hiking for an hour.
Right, going down.
Yeah.
Which is the fast part.
Which is the fast part, yep. Yeah, so I mean, just, yes, like hang out at the viewpoints and enjoy the views from above, but do what you can to at least dip down a little bit. It really makes a huge difference.
Yep.
And that's why, you know, once you can kind of start putting the Grand Canyon into perspective and seeing it in different ways, I think that's really when the appreciation comes. Like just like rolls like a wave over you. You know, it's just like, wow.
Right.
Wow. Well, I'm speechless.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit about this in the fun facts episode, but for us today, looking at the Grand Canyon, it's huge, it's beautiful, but it's not the giant obstacle that it was for early people, you know, the early explorers and for natives and stuff like that. Like, I'm really excited. I don't know, there's so many cool things about it, but like this area of the world went unexplored for so long because the Grand Canyon was such a difficult terrain to traverse.
Yeah.
And so,
well, and there are historic trails. There are trails you can take besides like the main corridor trails that we've mentioned so far, that are like those historic trails from people who first came to the Grand Canyon and were trying to find a way through or across or down, you know. And so there are other trails. I mean, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but that's what's really cool about it. You know, when you go to Grand Viewpoint along the Desert View Drive, that is a trailhead for a trail that goes down into the canyon. A lot of people don't know about it, and a lot of people don't do it because it's pretty treacherous, you know, but like that's a trail that they used to use a lot. And so it's so cool. I love the South Rim. I think that the South Rim, you know, you can get whatever experience you're looking for, you can find it there.
right.
And so definitely, you know, try to get to the South Rim if you can. But,
Yes.
and this is a but, we love the North Rim.
Oh, it's probably, if we're looking for a quick trip or a nice quiet experience on the Grand Canyon, the North Rim is like our hidden gem as a fan, you know, and I feel like we almost have it like as a secret to ourselves because there's not very many people there.
It's never been busy when we've been there.
Yeah.
And we're like, seriously? So from the South Rim, so you can see the North Rim from the South Rim, but you have to drive around the Grand Canyon to get up to the North Rim.
Right. The long way around.
Yeah, the long way around. So it takes like 4 hours to drive up and around to get to the North Rim. And only about 10% of the people who visit Grand Canyon National Park visit the North Rim. And so already, you know, the crowd level is just so low. But you get up there, there's not as much to do. There's not as many amenities. You know, you're pretty limited actually on a lot of that stuff. And it just provides a completely different experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But if you're sitting on the South Rim, you don't notice, but the North Rim is 1,000 feet taller. Than the North Rim is so much taller than the South Rim. And that means weather is different, plant life is different, animal life is different, you know, and the way that the canyon has eroded is also very different. And so the canyon walls, they're more covered in plant life. They generally erode slower than the South Rim side. And so it's a lot more immersive in some ways, depending on where you're at. And so the North Rim, it just feels like almost it's a totally different national park in some ways because it just looks different. It feels different. It is different.
Yeah. So the North Rim, I mean, basically has two different sections. You've got the area around the visitor center and the lodge. And so there's a couple trails around there that you can do. And then you've got the scenic drive, which takes you out and around and up to another part of the North Rim with different views and different things to do. And so what's your favorite section of the North Rim?
My favorite section, I like Cape Royal and Angel's Window.
Yeah, so that's at the very end of the scenic drive. And that scenic drive is actually like you can see the canyon along the scenic drive, but you know, you are like, it's windy. You're winding through trees. You're going through forests. Like
you're much further back from the rim than you are on the South Rim scenic drives and stuff like that.
It kind of trips you out a little bit, at least for me, where I'm like, I'm in a forest.
Well, yeah, it's like,
you know the rim is over there.
Yeah. When you see the rim, it's like you stumble upon it sometimes and you're just like, whoa. Like I remember there's this one turn, I think it's kind of by the Cliff Spring Trail where you come towards the rim and then it's like a sudden turn and you're just like, whoa.
The rim's right there. Yeah. So Cape Royal and Angel's Window is the end of the scenic drive. And that's just a really cool area. Cape Royal, I think, is probably, if I had to choose one viewpoint that I love the most at the Grand Canyon, it would be that one.
Yeah. It's so pretty.
Because you've got like these big like temple formations that just like jut out of the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And so you can see all the layers. You get like the enormity of the Grand Canyon.
Right.
But then you have these like temple formations pretty close to you that just let you get a really good look at like the different layers and stuff. So I love that one.
Yeah. And those temple formations from the South Rim are so far. They blend into the North Rim a little bit. But from the North Rim, they're just like right in your face. And so it's so cool. Quick tangent. If you've ever read any of the Fablehaven books, I think you have to get to like the third book in or something like that. But there's this magical preserve that's called Lost Mesa. And it hides like this hidden magical place with all these cool creatures, but this giant magical mesa that just comes up out of the earth. And that's kind of how I picture a lot of these temple formations from the North Rim. And they're so cool and they're right there. And this last time that we were there, we had been there during like this torrential rainstorm.
It was the remnants of a hurricane.
It was so bad.
Got like stalled over the Grand Canyon. And we literally, like half of our trip, we just like sat in our cabin, had no idea what to do because it was raining so hard. Nobody could do anything.
Right. Well, we would walk out to the rim and look across and everything was just gray. You know, you couldn't see anything.
When we were at Angel's Window in Cape Royal, we're looking out into the Grand Canyon. Supposedly it was there, but you couldn't see anything. It was just like straight fog.
Yeah, you could have stepped off and not known, you know.
We knew it was there because we'd seen it before, but we were like, oh, well, this is
our kids, they've been there before, but it's just like they never remember things. And so they were like, what are we? I thought we were on an arch. And we're like, you are on an arch. Isn't this crazy?
Yeah. So Angel's Window is actually an arch that like juts out into the Grand Canyon and you can stand on top of it. That is like major vertigo for me. I don't usually get like really bad vertigo. When you're out on Angel's Window, you are literally like, you can see straight down into the Grand Canyon and all you have is this little tiny bar, you know, like in front of you, keeping you from going off. So I love that area. I just think it's so cool. And I love driving the scenic drive because it feels different. It's quiet. It's relaxed. You can stop as you want to. There's some Native American ruins up there. There's a picnic area that's literally like right on the edge. You also get to Point Imperial, which is the highest viewpoint in Grand Canyon National Park. And so that one's really cool. But yeah, I mean, it's like a leisurely day out. There's some really good hiking trails out there and you can kind of just do what you feel like and enjoy the views and get out and stretch your legs and it's not crowded.
Right. But yeah, I love all that scenic drive. It's so beautiful and so pretty. There are definitely some smaller hikes that you can do. But as you come back off of the scenic drive and come back towards like the lodge and everything right there, I love the big trail that they have on the North Rim. It's so cool. It's the North Kaibab Trail. So the South Kaibab gets you down into the canyon really fast. And the Bright Angel Trail is usually what you come out of. Well, the North Kaibab, because the North Rim is taller and has eroded completely differently, the North Kaibab almost meanders down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, it's the longest way to the bottom. It's 14 miles, which is twice as much as the South Kaibab.
Absolutely. And the colors are different, and you make your way through a bunch of smaller canyons before you get to the big, open expanse of the Grand Canyon, down to the bottom. But there's one thing on all of these trails that we haven't discussed yet.
Yeah, and it is worth discussing because every time we go to the Grand Canyon, we have this pep talk with our kids. Now, kids, remember, when we hike at the Grand Canyon, we never jump in the puddles. And
why not?
We've had this talk with our kids before, but this particular time, so we just went to the North Rim a couple months ago. And we were hiking the North Kaibab Trail before we started. And we look our kids in the eyes and we're like, hey, we never jump in the puddles because that's mule pee. And you also, you got to be careful, in the mud and stuff. You got to make sure it's not poop, you know. You just got to avoid the poop and the pee. And so we're giving our pep talk and our 8-year-old, he looks up at us and he scrunches up his nose and he goes, that sounds disgusting. disgusting. Why are we hiking this? And John and I both laughed because we're like, I mean, it's a valid question. We did not paint the trail and like usually we're like, okay, kids, like this trail is going to be so awesome. We're going to see all these things. But for the North Kaibab, we're like,
it was just all disclaimers.
Yeah, just don't step in the puddles. Don't step in the mud. You know, make sure you're watching your feet. Don't look at the views. You got to watch your feet. You know, and so it was just, but I loved his reaction. I was like, that's disgusting.
Oh, man.
It was like, yes, it is. It is disgusting.
It is so gross. And I will say, it's not always the nicest smelling trail because of those, what I like to call rustic cascades.
Yeah, it's gross. I mean, the North Kaibab, the South Kaibab, the Bright Angel, all three of those trails use mules. And so, you know, you've got to just go into it with the expectation that there is going to be mule pee and poop and it's going to smell bad, you know, for a good portion of the trail.
Right.
Well, actually the whole trail because the mules go all the way down to the bottom.
Right.
So,
but the mules are cool. We're giving them a bad rap right now, but they're also so cool.
They are cool. And I mean, you think about the Grand Canyon. So we haven't talked about this, but like they actually, to get water up to all of us visitors at the top, they bring it from the Colorado River at the bottom. There are pipelines from the bottom up to the top.
Uh-huh.
And so, you know, you just think about like how much work goes into even letting us be able to come and stay at the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. And the mules are a huge part of that. I mean, the mules do a lot of the heavy lifting for all of those things along the Grand Canyon. To get water lines fixed. I mean, they're using mules to move equipment and stuff, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, those mules are amazing.
Well, they're so cool. And they use mules on purpose because and anybody that knows like the history of mules, they're so cool. The reason they use mules instead of like horses is because they have their eyes are set up in the right way so that they can see all four of their feet. They can see their back feet as well. And on the Grand Canyon, pretty treacherous terrain. If you misstep on the wrong spot,
you're going down.
Yeah. And so the mules, they may be smelly. They may make the trail a little bit messy, but I mean, they are incredible creatures to be able to they do so much work. I struggle with my day pack sometimes, you know, on those trails, and they are just packing tons of stuff. And, you know, one day I will take a mule and I will enjoy the experience, you know, going down and coming back up, and I'll, you know, get a postcard and I'll mail my postcard by mule power. You know, that's how I'll get it from the bottom.
Yeah, the mules are cool, but I mean, you still do have to have the pep talk, you know. You gotta get yourself ready for those trails because they smell.
Right.
They smell pretty good.
That's true. So, your hiking boots are meant to get dirty, but ... Yeah.
Try to avoid the puddles. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's virtually the North Rim, right? Mm-hmm. You've got the scenic drive. You've got the North Kaibab Trail. Like you can go out to Bright Angel Point and stuff. That's a really short trail by the lodge. There's other areas along the North Rim that you can access through Forest Service roads and things like that. But I mean, generally, when you go to the North Rim, it's far enough removed that you don't have to go very far to find solitude. Mm-hmm. It's just more relaxed. It's quieter. We love the North Rim. I mean, I get that question a lot, you know, North or South Rim. And I think, you know, in general, like as a first-time visitor, you should probably go to the South Rim.
Right.
But if you go to the North Rim as a first-time visitor, you won't be disappointed. Mm-mm. Well, some people are. I've heard some people.
Yes,
there are people who are just disappointed in general with the Grand Canyon. But, you know, it's just a totally different experience. We love both. I don't think we could choose a favorite. You know, if you're wanting to hike down into the canyon and go on like those really famous trails, you know, you'll probably want to focus more on the South Rim. But if you're looking for a nice quiet stay at the Grand Canyon and you just want to soak in the views, sit on a rocking chair right on the rim, you know, at the lodge and just enjoy the view, then the North Rim is perfect for that.
Absolutely. And I love both rims myself too. I think they're both such cool experiences. And my grandpa, I got to talk about him for just a second because a lot of my love for the Grand Canyon comes from him. And I think the Grand Canyon is kind of like a generational thing where, you know, you can share this experience and talk about your experience with almost everybody. It's super universal. I love the Grand Canyon for that. And that's where my love comes from. And so whether it's North Rim, South Rim, you got down into the canyon or you didn't get down into the canyon, just your experience, it's a shared experience and it's so universal. You know, you can talk about the Grand Canyon with anybody you met on the street. You know, or, you know, somebody, a family member, you know, you haven't seen in a while. You're wondering, what am I going to say to this guy at Thanksgiving? Talk about the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just, I'm so excited for you to go, the listener, you know, go to the Grand Canyon. It's an amazing experience. You can't lose, but get on the trail just for a second. That's like my one piece of advice. Get on the trail just for a second if that's all you can do, because it will change the way that you see it.
Yep, and then be sure to avoid the puddles.
Avoid the puddles. Thanks for exploring the national parks with us.
Please share, like, and subscribe. And if you need any help planning your own trip, click on over to dirtmyshoes.com.
See you next week. Same time, same place.
And don't forget to get some dirt in your shoes.